Hello everyone, welcome back to my YouTube channel. I want to share a personal and important topic with you all today that affects me and many others. It's a story of resilience, hope, and hopefully it awares a lot of you. And hopefully it can reach the right audience that I'm hoping for. And yes, I do have a script, so if you see me looking this way, I am looking at the script just to make sure that I have everything that I'm talking about because I don't want to mess this up. So let's get into it. Let's start with spina bifida. Spina bifida is a birth defect that affects the spine and the nervous system. The name spina bifida comes from the Latin words spina, meaning spine, and bifida meaning split. So basically, in short term, it is a split spine that can happen anywhere inside the body, or inside the spine, inside the spine, and it can be from all the way up to the neck. So actually, a famous singer, as his name is John Mellencamp, he has spina bifida as well, and it is actually in his neck area. If I believe, I'm not so sure, but from what I knew, it was up here. Mine is down by my tailbone, L4, L5 area. If I think that's right, yes. So during the fetal development, the spine and spinal cord don't properly form, leaving a gap or the split spine. This can lead to nerve damage, muscle weakness, and other complications. So, nerve damage, I do kind of have. I do, actually. It's not severe. I can walk. And I do have some bowel issues. That is another complication of spina bifida. And so, what I have a neurogenic bladder. And that basically means I have a paralyzed bladder. So I can't hold anything. And so a couple of years ago, and it's now 2025, so I think it was, honestly I can't remember, but a couple of years ago I had a artificial sphincter put in to my bladder to basically help me drain as a regular guy would. And then recently I had that artificial sphincter taken out because it had done severe damage to my bladder, that I was at risk for something else that could potentially mess everything up. So I had that taken out, and now I'm back to being what's called incontinent. So I can't control anything. And that's also with my other bowels, so number twos. And so I do a nightly enema. So a lot of you may have known the rectal enema, which is the tube that goes back there in. But with the ACE procedure that I had done, it's a port that, so they connect my appendix to my small intestine, I believe it was. And so I do my enemas through a gravity bag, like a feeding bag, and it's a little port in my belly button, and so that's what helps me stay dry, basically. So now that we have that, we can move on to another thing that I have. It's called hydrocephalus, and it's a condition where the accumulation of cerebral spinal fluid, so CSF for short, in the brain that can lead to increased pressure of the brain, causing symptoms like headaches, nausea, and difficulty balance and coordination. I had that develop, I want to say, not too long after I was born, maybe a couple of days after I was born. There was that buildup in my brain of the CSF fluid. And so I had my second surgery, basically. I think that was my second surgery. I've had 16 surgeries, so it's kind of hard to remember, but I believe that was my second surgery, was the putting in of my pump called a shunt. And so that sits right back here on my head. It's inside, so no one can really see it. There are two types of shunts. There are the programmable and there are the non-programmable. The non-programmable does stick out a little bit outside of the skin. It has a little knob that you can turn to control how much CSF fluid drains out and into your stomach. Mine is already pre-programmed to have a certain amount of it drain throughout the day. I believe it is a constant drain. Um, so let's get into it. As someone living with spina bifida and hydrocephalus, I want to share my personal story to raise awareness and promote understanding. Growing up, I faced many challenges and many surgeries, but I've learned to adapt and thrive. And so I hope by sharing this story, I can inspire others to do the same. Together, we can create more inclusive and support community for their people because I'm going to be honest, spina bifida is a well-known and is it's leading birth defect in the U.S. Basically, it's well known, but not a lot of people know about it, and that is kind of sad to me. So I want to raise awareness. I want to hopefully reach the right audience on this platform and help others like me. So when I was born with spina bifida, my parents knew way before I was even born that I had spina bifida. So that put a lot of stress on them, not knowing how I would basically turn out. I had doctors telling them crazy things that I won't get into right now because that's personal. And yeah. So when I was born on October 25th of 2007, me being at 17 years old right now, that's old. I was born, and my spinal cord and spine basically were in a sac outside of my body, down by my tailbone, and so I was born. I was fine. I was in the ICU, the pre-nic, something like that, ICU for babies, for a couple days, and then the second, I believe it was 48 hours, so 2 days after I was born, I had my first ever surgery of putting my spinal cord back inside my body, and luckily that went well, and I've been fine since. I've had more surgeries then, but yeah. And then for the hydrocephalus, that developed over a course of a couple more days, maybe a week, I believe. I can't remember. I'm sorry. But it took me in. My dad has always taken me into the ER. I've never been in an ambulance, not until recently, and that was just for transport. Not important right now. Anyways, so when I was taken to the hospital for that, and I had a shunt put in my brain. There are two types of shunts. There is the non-programmable, and then there is the programmable shunt. The non-programmable shunt I have. So the difference is the programmable shunt, it has a little knob that you can turn, I believe, and it sits just right outside of right side of your skull, and it's not actually like in the skull itself. It's like it's like a little drilled into the brain a little bit through the skull, and then it just sucks out the CSF fluid that surrounds your skull, that basically protects your skull and brain. Anyways, so I had a problem with that, so they put in the shunt, and so that way my brain doesn't swell, because that's what too much CSF fluid can do. It can cause headaches, and it can cause swelling, and eventually to something terrible that I will not say. So that was another surgery when I was recently born, and so later on, I had like the typical tonsils and adenoids, which were fine, but those grew back 2 to 3 times. I know, crazy. So that's basically early childhood. I'm trying to remember. My shunt did fail, so shunt failure is kind of a scary thing because it's just very scary. I will say that, because you have the worst headache that you could think of. It's like a migraine times 10, and your eyes will dilate basically. And as this is kind of the funny thing with me is I kind of look drunk. I've never done anything like that, but lethargic is basically a better word, I should say. um, so I'll basically just be dizzy. I'll be off balance, as it said earlier. Um, it can cause balance issues, and I will have balance issues. Excuse me, and that's basically how it works. It's a bad headache, and I basically have, I think, 3 days to get to the hospital. So it progresses over time, but it can get really bad. So, anyways, with that, that's basically it. And then, let's see, 2014 is when I moved here to Montana, and I've lived here ever since. And since I've moved here, I've had basically all my surgeries here. I've only had a couple in Virginia, which is where I'm from. And so when we moved here, we took me up to Seattle Children's Hospital. Shout out to Seattle Children's if someone who works there sees this. Hi. Um, and so I have a great team up there, and they have been working with me ever since we moved here, because when we first moved here, they took me up to them, and they found that I had a tethered spinal cord, which is basically your spinal cord connected to the side of your spine, and it caused me not to grow. So instead of growing, when I had a growth spurt, I had basically lost of balance, lost of stability, and it kind of looked like I was shrinking, but I wasn't. And so the good thing is that we caught it, and I had surgery. I actually have had 3 surgeries on my spine for this, because if I had not had the surgery to detether my spine, I would be paralyzed and in a wheelchair. That's how bad it was. So that was the first spinal surgery that I had, and then not too long after that, it had reopened. And actually, no, sorry, I take that back. I've only had 2 spinal surgeries. The second time, it had reopened due to infection, and they had to do a complete, like, clean out and everything of it, and then fixing up some other stuff too. So that was rough, because I used to be a back sleeper, surprisingly, on my back. And then ever since that surgery, I think I was like 10 years old, I have not slept on my back yet, because it just brings back bad memories of being in pain and in the hospital for over a month due to that happening. No, sorry, not in the actual hospital. I was basically in Seattle for a whole month, which was not fun. And so that was early when we first moved here, and then later on, I had my feet basically rebuilt, redone, because I used to walk like this. So my one foot would turn in and basically walk on its side, and my arch was basically a horseshoe, as my doctor said, and my tendons and everything were messed up in this foot, so I would basically raise and walk like this on my heel. So the first surgery I had on my feet were to basically realign anything, so I had bones cut, I had tendons moved. It was crazy. I was in casts on both feet for 6 months in a wheelchair, not able to walk, which sucked. So then after that, I healed up just fine. I was in AFOs, which is an ankle. Yeah. I can't remember what AFO stands for. Sorry, but they're basically just plastic braces. So it's like braces for your teeth, except they wrap around your legs and go basically all the way up to your knee, and they're modified to help my feet stay the same and flat as they were before. Luckily, my one foot did stay fine, and then I had a second surgery on, I believe it was my right foot. Yes, my right foot. That because my right foot, the horseshoe, basically the horseshoe arch came back, and so that had to be redone, so I had to flatten. And then I also had these things called hammer toes, which is where your toes curl in instead of staying flat like most people's feet do. mine started curling in, and my one pinky toe was like my pinky right now. It's like this. So I actually had rods in my toes for a good while, and I couldn't really walk. So, and that actually took longer to basically learn how to walk again from then my both feet, which is kind of crazy. And then moving on, I had the ACE procedure, and that's for bowels. So I have a neurogenic bladder. I think I've already stated it. No, I haven't. Neurogenic bladder and bowel issues. So a part of spina bifida, it can cause nerve damage, and I do have nerve damage from like my waist down area. And so I have the neurogenic bladder, which basically means paralyzed bladder. And so I can't hold anything. I am in pull-ups, basically adult diapers, and I have been made fun of before for that because I will like have accidents. I can't control anything of it, and it is hard sometimes. So yeah, and then for my bowels, my other bowels, so where I go poop, basically, that's kind of the same deal. I don't remember the big word for it. I don't even know if there is a word for it, but I just can't hold anything. So I had a surgery called the ACE Malone procedure, which is where they take my appendix and they attach it from my belly button to the inside to my small intestine. And so everybody knows, so nurses, if you're watching this, you would know as a enema, the rectal enema. I do an enema, just not that way. I have a gravity bag and I hook it up to a port in my belly button, and that's how I do it, and that's like a 2-hour process. So there are some nights where it goes really easy, and there are some nights where it's really bad and it's causing a lot of pain where I stay up, and I will sometimes miss school because it's just that bad. And so those are basically the big surgeries. There are still a couple more that I will go through, but I've already kept you here long enough. So if you want to learn more about spina bifida and bowel management, which is going to be my next video of how I cope with that and how I deal with it and other stuff, stick around. Feel free to like and subscribe. And thank you all for watching and listening to my story. If you know someone affected by spina bifida or hydrocephalus, I hope this video has provided valuable information and support, and that you're not alone. And in a couple of days I will have another video mainly for coping, of how I cope with it, and because we've all been through a lot of stuff, and so I want to help give back. So thank you all for watching, and feel free to put in the comments of something I could have done better in this video, because I'm still learning, and I don't really know how to edit, so I'm still learning. But anyways, thank you for watching, and see you next time.